One youth died in silence. Another dug a well. One nation erupted in protest. Another chose to build. Across Africa, a generational shift is unfolding and it speaks in many languages. Some raise banners, others lift bricks. But all are asking the same question. Who will shape our future? In Kenya, the voice of Gen Z echoed across screens, street corners, and funeral halls. They had grown up with hashtags, downloaded dreams, and promises that never arrived. But in 2025, their disappointment turned into defiance. A finance bill, another tax hike, and the quiet death of a young blogger named Albert Ojwang lit the spark. And Kenya's youth, always online, suddenly went offline and into the streets. Have you ever felt your heart breaking, your eyes burning with tears, as you watched our motherland Africa suffer through conflict, poverty, and disease? Have you seen children shivering in rags, hungry and hopeless, while our parents work tirelessly all year, but still cannot feed their families? We have endured enough. Now is the time for us, the sons and daughters of this continent, to rise. Let us stand hand in hand, build our nations, learn together, grow together, and show the world that Africa is not a burden. Africa does not beg. Share this video so our voices can echo far and wide. Let God see our courage. Let the world stop turning its back on us. Comment where you are watching from. Share this for one dream, a free, stable, and united Africa. If you would like a versio. Yet thousands of kilometers to the west, a different voice was rising. It did not chant. It built. In Burkina Faso, under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Gen Z was not waiting for change. They were laying its foundation. Classrooms repainted, power lines repaired, boreholes dug. While one generation protested policy, another generation enacted purpose. This is not a contest between right and wrong. It is a mirror. Two nations, two approaches, one generation at the center. One asks for inclusion, the other builds it. In this video, we follow the story of Gen Z in Kenya and Burkina Faso. We compare their cries, their courage, their choices. We ask which model builds a future, not just movements. And most importantly, we ask you, which one speaks to your soul? Because tomorrow's Africa is already under construction. The question is, will you carry the hammer or only the banner? Share this video if you believe Gen Z is no longer just the future. They are the force shaping Africa right now. It began with numbers, tax hikes, cuts in subsidies, another round of economic tightening under a banner called reform. But for Kenya's Gen Z, it was never about percentages or policies. It was personal. In mid-2025, a finance bill backed by the International Monetary Fund was introduced by the administration of President William Ruto. It promised debt control and fiscal discipline, but in homes across Nairobi, Eldoret, and Kisumu, it felt like betrayal. The cost of groceries had doubled. Fuel prices soared. The Kenyan shilling had dropped nearly 30% in value. For a generation raised on technology, but left out of decision-making, this was the final insult. They had studied hard, earned degrees, chased digital jobs. Yet, every day, their future seemed to vanish in inflation, in silence, in exile. And when the finance bill passed, their silence shattered. TikTok became a battlefield. Hashtags flooded timelines, streets filled with voices too long ignored. And in that storm, a single tragedy turned resistance into reckoning. Albert Ojwang, a young blogger and digital commentator, was found dead in police custody. His words had once rallied hope. Now his silence thundered. The live stream of his memorial swept through social media. Within hours, thousands chanted one phrase: "Enough is enough." What followed was not just "protest it," was awakening. Young Kenyans were not only marching, they were organizing. On college campuses, law students offered free legal clinics. Coders built real-time police tracking dashboards. Economics graduates launched grassroots audit teams, tracing loan agreements, analyzing budget allocations, and asking one question: who really benefits? The government responded with force. President Ruto authorized police to shoot at the legs of violent protesters. That phrase made headlines, but it also drew a line. For many, it was the moment they knew this was no longer a negotiation. It was a generational divorce. A young police officer, caught on video removing his badge, looked into the camera and said, "I did not betray my country. I refuse to serve a system without humanity." That clip reached over 1 million views in a day, and it pierced something deeper than policy. It struck at the core of national trust. What does it mean when even the enforcers of the state step away? In Kenya, the leadership style was structured, technocratic, and distant. But the youth demanded more. Not just policies, participation. Not just vision, voice. They wanted to be seen, not surveyed, heard, not managed. Inflation is not an abstract theory for them. It is the mother who skips dinner so her children can eat. It is the freelancer whose international pay loses value overnight. It is the university student who cannot afford bus fare to class. And so they rose not because they lacked understanding, but because they understood too well. The movement evolved. It became more than slogans. It became structure. Telegram groups mapped protest zones and shared first aid tips. Young programmers developed police abuse reporting tools using open source code. Journalists live-streamed from rooftops when news crews were banned. And even under internet blackouts, digital forums found ways to broadcast. International media took notice. Human Rights Watch condemned the crackdown. The United Nations called for restraint, but the government doubled down. Foreign reporters were denied permits. Local media faced intimidation. And yet, the youth kept speaking. They used their phones as their flags. Their data plans became defiance. Their digital fluency turned into a civic weapon. One Twitter user wrote, "We are not angry because we are uninformed. We are angry because we are finally informed, and we refuse to unlearn." Still, the tension lingered. Is rebellion enough? Can exposure alone fix broken systems? On university campuses, debates raged. What does justice look like without trust? What comes after democracy when democracy forgets us? Is protest power, or is it a placeholder for something that must be built? The grief deepened, the courage intensified, but so did the questions. One law student in Mombasa said it best, "I protest because I love Kenya, and I still want to believe again." That sentence, quiet as it was, said everything. This was not a generation that hated their country. They were just tired of being excluded from it. So they protested, not with hate, but with hurt and with hope, because protest is not weakness. It is a declaration that something better must rise, that the people still care enough to demand change. But in Kenya, the pain remains sharp, and the question remains open. Will leadership listen, or has that moment passed? For now, Gen Z holds the banner high. But what comes after the march? What happens when courage needs construction? When rebellion needs blueprints? That is the test Kenya now faces, and it is a test the youth are demanding the right to write for themselves. While Kenya's streets shook with slogans, another kind of movement was unfolding in the dust-covered heart of Burkina Faso. No viral clips, no hashtags, just hammers, shovels, and a vision that did not need to trend, it only needed to take root. At the center of this shift stood a man who did not come from palaces or elite universities, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a soldier, 37 years old. He came to power not through campaigns, but through a wave of popular frustration. Yet, instead of promises, he brought presence. Instead of speeches, action. Traoré was not a distant ruler. He walked with farmers, Saturday on bare earth beside village elders. He asked, "What do you need?" And then, he helped build it. Under his watch, Burkina Faso rejected foreign dependency and chose sovereignty. A gold refinery was built. National resources were reclaimed. An army of over 100,000 civilian volunteers joined local defense programs. And in this movement, Gen Z found not just a leader but a mission. Across towns like Kaya, Tenkodogo, and Bobo Dioulasso, young people did not wait for permission. They organized school cleanups, painted classrooms, repaired broken power lines. In a country often dismissed by outsiders, youth reclaimed the right to rebuild from within. They did not chant. They constructed. They did not debate. They delivered. The message was simple. If the world withdraws support, we will not withdraw our future. In one small village, a youth collective restored a borehole using only donated tools and their own hands. In another, students built mobile classrooms out of shipping containers. When funding for higher education was cut by global institutions, they launched their own e-learning platforms, staffed by local tech volunteers. Hashtags were replaced by harvests. Outrage by ownership. Burkina Faso was not resisting with protest. It was responding with productivity. What made this different? It was not just policy, it was proximity. Gen Z did not feel abandoned. They felt invited. Traoré did not rule with control. He led with collaboration. He showed up at youth construction sites, not with cameras, but with his hands. He distributed tools, ate meals, beside workers. His presence said one thing: I do not build for you, I build with you. For many young people, this was the first time leadership looked like partnership. And it mattered, because in a world flooded with empty words, action still speaks louder. The phrase that echoed across Burkina Faso was not a complaint. It was a commitment. We build together. This civic culture grew quickly. Schools formed student councils not to protest, but to repair. Youth created local sanitation teams. Farmers donated land for training centers. Women's groups organized food programs for undernourished children. In one town hall in Kaya, over 800 participants gathered. Their question was not abstract. It was urgent. If you were president, what would you cut to protect food in schools? Not one person asked for slogans. They asked for land deeds, for teacher training, for tools. This was not performative engagement. It was the practice of nationhood, and this shift was not without questions. Could this momentum survive bureaucracy? Would local projects be sustainable? Could belief scale? But for now, what mattered most was not the perfection of the system, but the power of participation. Trust, after all, is not declared. It is earned. And in Burkina Faso, that trust was earned not through media headlines, but through soil, sweat, and silence, the kind that follows hard work, not applause. This movement changed more than landscapes. It changed the psychology of youth. They stopped asking to be saved. They started asking to be trusted. They were not trying to prove worth to outsiders. They were building proof for themselves. And in that quiet revolution, a new kind of pride was born. Not loud, but durable. Not glamorous, but grounded. Gen Z in Burkina Faso held no illusions. They knew the challenges, economic, security, political. But they also knew something deeper. They were no longer waiting for transformation. They had become its architects. One young builder in Ouagadougou put it simply: we do not dig for water, we dig for dignity. That sentence captured everything. Burkina Faso's youth were not asking for reform. They were rehearsing it. They were not waiting to inherit the future. They were constructing it brick by brick, beam by beam. And the world, long used to viewing Burkina Faso through the lens of fragility, had to pause. Because what was happening here could no longer be ignored. Not just because of what they were building, but because of who was building it. This was not a government project. It was a generation's proof of belief. And belief, once built into roads, schools, and hands that no longer tremble, becomes something greater than hope. It becomes momentum. And in Burkina Faso, that momentum is now moving faster than doubt. The streets of Nairobi roar with chants. The villages of Ouagadougou hum with hammer strikes. On the surface, both movements express frustration. But beneath, something deeper is at play. A divide, not just in method, but in mindset. In Kenya, Gen Z fights from the outside. They challenge the system with questions, confront power with analysis, and demand change through exposure. Their tools are digital, their battlefield is virtual. Their strength lies in clarity, courage, and refusal to remain silent. They are informed, connected, loud by necessity, but that volume hides something tender: the pain of being shut out. the rage of witnessing decisions made in boardrooms they will never enter, the heartbreak of being told to tighten belts while elites build empires. Kenya's youth are not just resisting oppression, they are reacting to exclusion. Contrast that with Burkina Faso. There, Gen Z works from within. Their energy is not aimed at confrontation, but contribution. They do not wait for transparency, they demand tools. They do not study the system from afar. They step into it with brushes, with wire, with water pumps. Their revolution is quiet, yet deliberate. They do not shout because they are included. They build because they are trusted. This is the psychological divide. In Kenya, protest is survival. In Burkina Faso, participation is power. One generation is forced to hack its own democracy. The other is invited to help design it. Which is more effective? That remains unanswered. But the emotional truth is clear. Inclusion transforms despair into direction. Trust replaces tension. And when youth feel seen, they do not burn institutions. They strengthen them. What Kenya's Gen Z longs for, Burkina Faso's Gen Z is living, however, imperfectly. And that is what makes the contrast so powerful. Because sometimes, the loudest message is not shouted, it is built. In the battle for narrative, Kenya and Burkina Faso have chosen different weapons. Kenya's Gen Z fights in the light. Their resistance is broadcast to the world. Live streams from rooftops, viral threads on social platforms, real-time maps of police movements. Their voice echoes across continents. Human rights organizations cite them. Foreign media magnifies them. Hashtags become headlines. It is powerful, but it is also perilous, because with every tweet comes risk. With every share, retaliation. The state, feeling exposed, responds with censorship. Journalists are barred. Internet is cut. Youth are hunted not just in streets, but in servers. And so, Kenya's movement becomes a media war. Phones turn into shields, posts into proof, silence into strategy. Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, a killer story unfolds. There are no press conferences, no viral videos, no international applause. But there are projects, tools passed hand to hand, radios broadcasting in local dialects, speeches delivered not for sound bites, but for substance. Captain Traoré does not chase the global spotlight. He bets on local trust. His message travels through community gatherings, not comment sections. It is heard in fields, not filtered through foreign headlines. In Bobo Dioulasso, a student-led radio show features updates on youth-built infrastructure. In Kaya, announcements are made during market days, not digital summits. This is not media silence. It is media sovereignty. While Kenya exports its cries for justice, Burkina Faso embeds its message in action. One nation says, "See our pain." The other says, "Watch our progress." And yet, both are valid. Kenya's broadcast awakens the world. Burkina Faso's blueprint steadies the ground. One fuels awareness. The other anchors belief. Which one matters more? In a world obsessed with visibility, it is easy to overlook what happens quietly. But history does not always favor the loudest voice. Sometimes, it remembers the most durable work, because when the headlines fade, what remains? A clip that went viral? Or a school that still stands? Two nations, one continent, one generation rising, but in two directions. Kenya's Gen Z stands in protest, their voices sharp, their hearts heavy, their courage undeniable. They hold signs, demand answers, and dissect systems that were never designed for them. They shake the gates of power with truth, technology, and tenacity. Burkina Faso's Gen Z stands in construction. They carry hammers, not hashtags. They paint classrooms, fix machines, dig water lines. Their resistance is not just political, it is practical. It is personal. It is progress, one brick at a time. This is not a battle of better. It is a study of survival. Kenya teaches us that dissent is a form of devotion, that shouting can be sacred, that when your voice is all you have, you use it loudly, bravely, endlessly. Burkina Faso teaches us that dignity can be built, That presence matters more than promises. That when power sits beside you, not above you, trust becomes possible. So we ask, which voice speaks to your soul? The one crying out for justice, or the one quietly building it? Africa is not waiting for the future. Africa is crafting it today, through its youth. To every young person watching, do not wait to be chosen. You are already the choice. Do not wait to be heard. Speak, build, lead. The path forward is not easy, but it is ours. So carry the banner if you must. Break the silence if you must. But when the shouting stops, pick up the hammer, because tomorrow's Africa will be built not only by those who protested, but by those who stayed, who believed, and who built something that lasts. Now tell us, which future are you shaping? My name is Elijah Mwangi. I live in Kisumu, Kenya. I watched this story, and I could not hold back my tears. It spoke the pain I carry every day, the pain of being young in a land that seems to forget its own children. I have seen friends disappear into poverty. I have seen my mother break her back in the market just to feed us. I have seen my sister graduate from university with honors, only to sit at home jobless for 2 years. We have been promised too much. We have received too little. But this story reminded me you are not alone. Our struggle is shared, from Nairobi to Ouagadougou, from Mombasa to Bobo Dioulasso. A new spirit is waking up. It is Africa rising. And it is rising not through foreign aid or broken leaders, but through us the youth. What Burkina Faso is doing touched my heart. Their Gen Z is not just complaining. They are constructing, not just criticizing. They are creating. And it made me ask, what if we, in Kenya, did the same? What if we stopped waiting to be saved and started building our future with our own hands? That is the new Africa I want to see. I want to learn from my brothers and sisters across the continent. I want to work with them. I want a united Africa, not divided by borders, but united by dreams. An Africa where a child in Kenya feels the same pride as one in Burkina Faso. An Africa that no longer cries alone, but rises together. This video reminded me, our pain has purpose. Our silence can become strength. It is time for Africa reborn. I believe in this dream. I believe in this fire. And I know now, Africa rising is not just a phrase. It is our future. It is our mission. It is now. Let the world watch. Let the world listen. A new Africa is coming, and we are the ones bringing it.